We know that the unified intention of critical groups of humans in specific places, sacred sites as they're called, because there the potency of what we might call the geomagnetic and the biopsychic fields is much more dense. Places like Teotihuacan or Palenque or Stonehenge or Machu Picchu. And so there's a greater potential of ripening that density of geomagnetic and biopsychic energy so that it can interact with the Earth's magnetic field. The Earth is a living entity. We think that just the life is on the surface. The Earth couldn't support the superficial life, the surface life, if the Earth itself weren't a living, evolving entity. Its core is the inner Earth. We know that around the octahedral core there's a tympanum, as it's called, which is the inner Earth. And we know that this inner Earth, this tympanum, from seismological readings, has mountains and valleys and all of that. There's a whole other world in there. That this is the actual core of the living Earth. And then it has its surface life, which is the evolving surface membrane. Vladimir Vernadsky, the Russian scientist who did the most research on defining the whole of the life of the surface of the Earth, which is called the biosphere. The biosphere is the sum of all of life on Earth, which Vernadsky says the sum of all of life on Earth is one. That the biosphere, he said, is that region on Earth for the transformation of cosmic energy. In other words, like that's what the surface life is supposed to be, transforming cosmic energy. The trees, you know, are doing that all the time. The plant life is doing that all the time, creating the carbon dioxide cycles, photosynthesizing. That's cosmic transformation. What are they for? They're taking solar radiation and making it green, creating a whole cycles for us to breathe and live. So the surface life is for the transformation of cosmic energy. The core life is the core life of the Earth, the intradimensional life of the Earth, the intelligence of the Earth. And then above, in the electromagnetic field, is where the electromagnetic field consists, the lowest level of it is the ionosphere, which actually is what we call the meteorological control, electronic control system. That's what the HAARP, the High Altitude Atmospheric Research Program, that's what it messes with. It's being developed as a weapon, a warfare weapon, to send different frequency using Tesla type of technology, extra low frequency waves, that can be directed to any point of the ionosphere. For instance, you see how much information now, how much news is being drummed up right now. Iran isn't really keeping its promise to not create atomic warfare. So, see all these news stories now. So the HAARP can go over Iran and shift weather patterns, create droughts, send windstorms, knock out the whole system. That HAARP will be up and running completely by 2006. They've already been conducting experiments. There were a lot of hurricanes this last year, and the first hurricane in Brazil. And it's interesting, there's been drought in Cuba. So that's the ionosphere. And then above the ionosphere, there's the electromagnetic field itself, which is between two radiation belts called the Van Allen radiation belts, which were discovered in 1953, the same year that the DNA was discovered. And 1 year after the tomb of the greatest of the Mayan prophets, Pakal Votan, his tomb was opened in 1952. And in the next year came these discoveries. When his tomb was opened in 1952, the Marxist archaeologist who dug for 3 years to get to his tomb, he finally opened that big stone door on June 15th, 1952, and he said when he opened that door, he said he could feel the thoughts, the last thoughts of the people who were in here escaping out that door. DNA and the magnetic fields were discovered the next year. That's a synchronistic discovery because the DNA and the electromagnetic fields operate in tandem. And within the two fields, the lower belt is 2,000 miles up and the upper belt is 11,000 miles up. The one belt traps solar radiation, the other cosmic radiation, and then they come in at the poles like this. At the North Pole they come in like this, and at the South Pole they come in like this. And then the radiation goes into the poles. So when there's excess, they create what's called the aurora borealis and the aurora australis. But then the excess energy then goes through the axis of the Earth into the interdimensional core, where it spices up and creates this cauldron of plasmic cosmic energy within the core. So the noosphere, the Earth's mental sheath, is located, its operating mechanism is located between the two electromagnetic fields. The noosphere is a word that was coined again by Vernadsky, the researcher of the biosphere, and by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, and a little-known French philosopher named Jules Leroy in 1926 in Paris. It was coined jointly by these three people. And they coined it because they knew Teilhard de Chardin was a paleontologist and Vernadsky was a geochemist, but they both had come to the conclusion that the Earth, the surface of the Earth is a living unity, and it's an evolving unity, and that it is evolving beyond its material function into a higher mental consciousness function, and they were looking for a word for this next stage of its evolution, and they coined the word noosphere. The noosphere means the mental sheath, the Earth's mental sheath, the thinking layer of the Earth. And we think our thoughts, so all we are is like tuning forks, and the thoughts are actually being resonated to us from the noosphere. That we notice that through the different stages of history, that even in different parts of the world that people have never met or known each other, yet they develop similar symbols at similar times, similar kinds of technologies, bronze technology developed in Africa and China and Greece. Different times, but they all follow the same pattern.